eye once.
I don't want that with something posh.
You had what?
I said I had it come out one eye once.
Is it okay if I set my coffee right here?
No, that's fine.
Okay, I just making sure.
Your eye.
Well, your nose and your eye,
sinus cavity are
your
connected,
sinus
right?
cavity's connected, right? There's
Yeah.
a tube that goes to your eye, and it came out with so much force out of my nose, I actually had milk come out my eye. It was like, my left eye. Of course, my left eye is really neat because sometimes it squeaks. So, like when I'm
You are so
rubbing my
weird.
eye, it'll actually squeak. And when I was younger, I used to blow my nose, and it would pressurize my sinus cavity because my sinuses are bad. And all of a sudden, you'd hear this. And it'd be the air leaking out of my eye, right? And people across the room going, what the...
I'm just a holy human.
The behind-the-scenes secret of the show.
Yep.
All right, let's get this over and done.
Okay.
Oh. Okay, where's my... Where am I? Jeez. Oh, there it is. Okay. Ready, in 3, 2...
Hi, this is David G. McAfee, and I took a left at the Valley.
I know we shouldn't have to scream that we're atheists. You know, we don't have non-astrologers and all that. But with the religious people taking over the world, I mean, we can either speak up or be pushed into a corner.
I'm proud to be an atheist, a skeptic, a non-believer, an infidel, a heathen. I call it how I see it. I say it's ignorance and you just call it faith and unsubstantiated claims. That's something to be ashamed. I'm an atheist.
Coming at you from Secret Lair in Abbotsford, BC. This is Left of the Valley. My name is Kevin, and I had to join the Jehovah's Witnesses Protection Program, which means now I knock on doors pretending to be someone else.
Faith in God is like a virus. So
Joining me as usual is a team who will teach you that the early bird gets the worm, but the second mouse gets the cheese.
Ooh.
If you see her smile in a crisis, it means she found someone else to blame. Nancy.
Absolutely. I like that one.
That is kind of cute.
He'll tell you that if he agreed with you, you'd both be wrong, Scott.
Oh, definitely. I'm always wrong.
And she was fired from a pet store because she kept braiding the snakes. Christina
I have what?
kept braiding the snakes.
Oh my gosh. Yep.
Braiding them
I'm
into her
picturing it
hair.
in my mind. It's so cool.
Oh, I could braid them into my hair. That would be
Medusa.
so cool. I like it.
A computer beat her at chess, but it was no match for her at kickboxing. Kirsten.
Hell yeah.
Guys, welcome back. Hope you had a good week.
I did. It was fantastic.
Absolutely.
And of course, we gotta make a mention that it is Memorial Day weekend, I guess, or Remembrance Day, as we say it up here in Canada. Today we'll be talking to Andrew Torrez about the Johnson Amendment. But first, let's do a bit of chit chat. Got lots to go through. Did you guys hear that apparently research says life is the inevitable consequences of physics?
Yep.
Apparently some MIT biophysics professor Jeremy England published the first papers testing the idea. Because of the second law of thermodynamics, the universe eventually will achieve homeostasis, which is maximum entropy. And biology arises because of some of the environments, the energy balance, and physics rearrange atoms to deal with the flow of energy. Computer simulations have shown life spontaneously arising, but it's still a hypothesis at this point.
That's so cool.
I think it might be true.
I think so too. I think they're onto something there.
So does
I
that mean
think they
that
are.
there's the likelihood of other life in the galaxy and universe is high?
Yes.
Absolutely.
That's so
Absolutely.
cool.
Absolutely. But of course, there's a difference between life in another part of the galaxy or another part of the universe and intelligent life.
Oh,
That's another
totally.
thing too.
100%.
Well,
But-
yeah, I mean, we might be talking about something like
Amoebas.
an algae, right?
Yeah.
So,
Or you could have a species that's
Eukaryotes.
ahead of us too, right?
Yeah,
Or-
since, since it's getting harder to find intelligent life on Earth, we need all the help we can get.
Did you guys hear that Syria finally signed the Paris Accord?
Yes.
that makes the
Yeah.
United States the last holdout, doesn't it?
Exactly.
it does.
It means the United States is the only country that hasn't signed that accord.
But didn't you guys know that they're leaders of the free world?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
I I don't know
Free to
why.
pollute.
I don't know why I keep getting surprised at all this. It's like I hear a new low from the administration or Trump himself, and I think, oh man, now we've hit rock bottom, and there doesn't seem to be a bottom. There are just too many areas, to tank, and they seem to be hitting every single one of them.
I just realized a great analogy. Hillary Clinton tried to break the glass ceiling, but Donald Trump just wanted to dig the floor out.
He's digging so deep, he's out to China now.
Exactly. Frick, yep.
So apparently some research suggests that atheism will defeat religion by 2038.
Nah.
Yay!
Because of atheism is more prevalent in most affluent people, money and the people that have more money and people that are educated. As more and more countries are turning secular, well-to-do countries could see a drop of believers by half by 2041. So they believe by 2048.
But is that just in developed countries? Because I'm assuming countries that are still
even the third world are improving their lifestyle and their education.
Yeah, but a lot of third world countries are getting more religious.
Yeah, of course. But it's. I think they're onto something there, and would also explain why you're seeing a resurgence in the religious and why they're doubling down and why they're trying so hard. They know they're on the way out. They know.
If only they could double down on helping people and making things better.
That would be useful.
Yeah. Did you guys hear about Danica Roma?
Yes.
No. What?
Yeah.
Well, they had some elections in the States. And
oh my gosh, okay, I know what you're talking about now.
And she is the first Virginia transgendered elected at the U.S. State House.
Oh, wow.
And it's so poetic because she ousted the state's most conservative lawmaker, Robert Marshall, who's been there for 13 terms. And he's the guy who introduced the bathroom bills.
I know, it was just
She will fix things. She will.
Well, and the really interesting thing is she ran on a platform of actually like improving her constituents' lives.
Yes.
It wasn't like, oh, look at me, I'm a transgender individual, I'm awesome. It was like, no, I'm me, let's help you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, she's great because she's been a journalist for a long time and she was active. So that's part of her DNA at this point is to be active.
She's also seen a lot, though. As you said, she was a journalist, which means she's seen the world. She's seen a lot. So she doesn't have these really weird preconceptions about how things are supposed to work like this conservative dude.
Yeah, she's a good liberal.
But it's amazing that this happened in Virginia. That's what I'm flabbergasted.
I'm laughing. It's great.
Marshall, her opponent Marshall, who's 73, he refused to debate her and respond to her with male pronouns.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe in karma, but that's the closest thing to making me believe in karma.
Well, he didn't have the mental equipment to debate her. It's
There
a
you
good
go.
thing. He would have shown even more ignorance. There was another transgender person who won a local election, I think, on one of the city councils, but I can't remember exactly. It was in Pennsylvania. It was I can't remember where, but it just a lot of minority people just really by good margins just were swept into office.
The times they are changing.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Let's hope. I mean, if this is a bellwether for 2018 in the States, there's some hope.
Oh, absolutely. The best contender for the missing link, Ken Ham, was invited to become a keynote speaker for Alberta homeschooling convention.
What?
Yes. Last year, these guys invited the Duggars. Remember the Duggars?
Wait, what? Did they invite all the Duggars?
Well, I think it was just the parents. This is happening next April in Red Deer. And
Why
Calvin
does this
Smith,
hurt my head?
because we spoke a bit about this. Calvin Smith, who's also supposed to be heading to Creation Museum here in Canada, is also going to be there.
Wow. So
Road trip.
Are they? Yeah, totally. I'd go. That would be so fun.
Yeah.
I know someone that lives there.
Ooh, there we go.
Where is it?
Red
Red
Deer.
Deer.
Red Deer.
Let's go protest.
Let's go. I know someone that lives there too.
Do you guys?
What time of year is it?
April.
April? There's the snow melted in Red Deer.
No.
Are the roads?
We'll go for my
Can you
birthday.
get through the roads?
We'll go for my birthday.
It's a half and half. You don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
You guys remember Roy Moore?
Well, what an incredibly stupid question.
I do.
Yeah, that clown that was judged, that was twice held for contempt. and he's running for Senate. And he was, of course, accused of sexually harassing 4 teens while he was in his 30s.
Yep.
And this is the best part. The Alabama auditor, Jim Ziegler, defending Moore by saying, quote, Mary was a teen when she married Joseph.
Oh, good Lord.
There's nothing immoral or illegal. Oh, my God. You know, I should have kept this for another brilliant moment, because it's just exactly that.
You could throw it in there.
I could absolutely throw it in there.
I mean, this whole scenario with Moore, who was thrown off the Alabama Supreme Court, and then he was thrown off the other. It wasn't a federal court. He was thrown off twice.
I think it was a court of appeal.
He was thrown off twice.
Yeah.
So then he runs, and Alabama at this point is probably the most obvious corrupt state in the United States, and now he comes along to add the pedophilia, if it's true, as everybody says. They always say, if it's true, if the allegations are true. And it's like people in Alabama are going, oh, that's okay, but he's our Roy Moore, and we love him, and, you know, if he did it, and it was so far in the past, and he's made up for it. And it's like, oh, my God.
Yeah. This is the difference between a conservative and a liberal. If he was a liberal candidate, he'd be in jail.
Oh, sure.
As a conservative, he's probably going to be elected.
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. With the Republicans, the morals are only when you're defaming the other party.
Exactly.
It has nothing to do with yours.
Exactly.
It's just despicable.
And, of course, we have to talk about the Texas church shooting. This is 26 dead, the First Baptist of Sutherland Spring. The killer is named Devin Kelly. He was a former airman with a history of violence, cruelty to animals, and escape from a mental health facility, and a gun obsession. Surprise, surprise. He was shot by a passerby as well. The Air Force apparently forgot to pass on his records, which of course didn't stop him from acquiring a gun. Otherwise he would have. And the big thing about it is apparently he was also an atheist.
Yeah.
And, of course, the Christians are pouncing on that to say, oh, see, you got to stop those atheists.
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of Christians are like, oh, well, he did it because, like, he was wanting to kill religious people. And it's like, well, if you actually look at the facts surrounding it, he actually went and murdered these people because of, I believe it was his mother-in-law.
Yeah.
And his spouse, he was abusive to his spouse and her child, and he wanted just to...
You mean he was a sick individual?
Yeah.
He was totally, bonkers.
Absolutely.
And as a member of the atheist community, why didn't we put this sick individual away? Oh, yeah, that's right, because we're stupid.
Yep.
Religious runs everything, and we're stupid.
Mm-hmm. Well, if the Christian, I'm being very discriminatory here. I've got to think of how to be very neutral and accepting while I'm saying this. But when you look at the number of serial killers and people who commit crimes overall, and you look at the number of atheists who are serving, and you look at the number of Christians and others, the atheists are way, way down.
Yeah, it is.
It's almost an aberration, to have an atheist serial killer with in the population. So to suddenly say, yep, they're all bad.
No, this guy was
just a way of saying, oh, thank goodness it's not one of our guys.
This guy was a sick puppy. He was a bad apple.
Yeah, he is a bad apple.
Unfortunately, it gives more ammo to create those false memes.
Yeah.
But we can't look at any of the religious people that go on haywire stunts.
Exactly.
When that happens, it's too soon to talk about.
Exactly. Okay, perfect. And I guess we also have to talk that it is Remembrance Day. I as much as I love to respect our veteran soldiers and all that, and I do have a rant later on to talk about this, I am concerned about the level of religiosity that is still pervasive in Remembrance Day. If you go to one of the ceremonies, it is so blatantly Christian, and I think it's so unfair to a lot of our soldiers that are not Christian.
Mm-hmm.
I remember simply watching the ceremony, was it last year, and of all the soldiers that were represented on stage, you had a couple of them that were Sikh, in the turbans, and you the whole crowd is singing hymns to, and there's a Christian priest there and all that. And I'm thinking the whole time, don't you people acknowledge that there's more than just Christianity?
Yeah.
The problem is that
it's a sacred cow, right?
Well,
Remembrance Day is a sacred cow. The fact that Christianity has put their grips onto it makes it difficult for them to be slaughtered.
It's tradition.
Yeah, I know.
And that's where the problem lies. It's in the tradition. They don't change the Remembrance Day ceremonies because there's a tradition to them. And that all stems from 1918.
Yeah. But it needs to be updated. It really does.
Well, when you go, do you see a diverse crowd, or do you see mostly, Canadian, Anglo, Christian-looking?
No,
people?
I think I see a diverse crowd. I've seen, yeah.
I'm just wondering whether if there's a diverse crowd, some of them, those who are there, some of them do feel left out, and as though they're not being, represented in.
But
in
even
the
if
ceremony.
it wasn't a diverse crowd, it would still not justify. Even if it was completely Anglo Canadian Caucasians, it's still.
No, I'm just asking for that.
No, I
information.
understand. I understand.
Yeah, I think you got to look at it from the point of view. Like I said, it's a ceremony or an observance that's been shrouded with that tradition. Mm-hmm. It's stuck in that tradition, and it's very, very difficult to get it out of that tradition due to how solemn it is. It's something that is very. You almost don't want to change it because it means so much to the people who've sacrificed.
There might be a bit of a backlash if we did decide to try to change it too, right?
Yeah.
So
I agree with you. I agree with you 100%, but I do understand the other side of it too, and it's there's a tradition that goes on there.
Yeah, but you can't use tradition, right? Because people always do that to me. It's tradition. Well, traditionally, women weren't supposed to vote either. So do you keep with tradition? No, some traditions need to be
okay. But we're looking at why was Remembrance Day formed, and it was due to a war that happened 100 years ago.
Yes.
And when that war ended, the whole point of Remembrance Day was that we never allow it to happen again, and we mark the day on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. We would mark that day with a ceremony to cause people to pause, look back, remember the losses, and never allow it to happen again. Now, the way it's been done has been shrouded with religion. It's been ceremonialized with religion. To change that might take away from the actual event if it's done wrong. It's a very touchy subject.
It needs to be done right, but I still think we can actually honor our soldiers and honor their sacrifice without opposing
I do agree with you.
On a happy note, I have a really wonderful story, if I can jump in here for a second. So for Remembrance Day, Kirsten and I were at a convention, and it was tons of nerds in this massive room.
And you've just been muted.
Hey, no,
sorry. It's a wonderful story.
No, you're being muted too. Sorry. No, I'm just kidding.
How could you?
It was beautiful.
There was hundreds and hundreds of people like milling around this massive room, making tons of noise and talking and buying things, and then a man came over the loudspeaker explaining that we were going to have the 2 minutes of silence, and for 2 minutes
you could hear a pin drop.
It was just silence.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
total respect.
It was amazing to experience. I'm like, thank you, people.
No, whenever they have those minutes of silence, there's usually like 10 seconds of silence, and then you hear a baby crying. It's always been my experience. There's a baby crying somewhere.
But
Marina, poor kid.
In a way, I guess that's kind of a nice thing. The fact that you hear that baby crying.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Okay. All right. My dear Nancy, you haven't been here in a couple of weeks. What do you got for us today?
Well,
you got a Quack Watch?
I'm back.
You're back.
I'm back, fully functional, which may be a good or a bad thing depending on how you look at it.
We'll be the judge of that.
Here we go. This is we're gonna do a Quack Watch. It's kind of a not funny, but it's
Quack
kind of a little off-center Quack Watch in a way, and I think it's really interesting. This may go a little longer than usual, but bear with me. I think you'll get a lot of really good information out of it. What we're going to cover today is the multi-million-dollar fake degree industry. Are any of you aware of
Trump University?
This is really, really something. The problem fake degrees themselves is nothing new, but the internet has made it a lot easier to obtain bogus qualification. So a board member of the U.S.-based Council for Higher Education Accreditation told CNN that he estimates that more than 100,000 fake degrees are sold each year in the U.S. alone. And of those, about 1/3 are postgraduate degrees, and that a bogus degree will typically cost about $1,000. So this is really wild because it takes in every profession, the legal, the medical, the business, the engineering. You have really no idea who's building that, sometimes who may be building that bridge or taking charge in the emergency room of somebody that you love. Either it's somebody that has been accredited or it's somebody that has fooled everyone enough to be able to command that particular job. So it's really a growing problem. So there's two facets to this. The institutions that sell fake qualifications are known either as diploma mills or degree mills. The diploma mills issue fraudulent diplomas supposedly granted by real universities, while degree mills pose as real universities. So people can get a diploma from perhaps a regular school of some kind that exists as a brick and mortar, but the degree mills who pose as universities are pretty much online and don't have any staff or any brick and mortar that you can turn to. So setting up a degree mill is a matter of creating a website that looks like it belongs to a genuine university, and the website includes a way for customers to pay for their qualifications online and a place for prospective employers to contact to verify the degree is genuine. So you got that? You can buy the degree, but then they also set up a fraudulent site so when the employers go to check, they have a substantial accreditation available so that the employer is fooled into thinking it's real. This is why this is getting to be as good, well, as prevalent as it is, because people can't slip under the radar when human resources and employers aren't diligent in checking them out. So some degree mills award degrees on the basis of the buyer's supposed life experience, while others require a small amount of coursework. That's a degree mill. A degree mill requires about a week's worth of coursework to earn a master's degree.
Oh my God!
Are you
A week's
kidding?
work, yeah. But what they're saying is you're actually doing some work to get it. So it sort of justifies things in the buyer's mind. Oh yeah, I put it just wasn't given to me. I wrote that paper on.
Where has this been all my life? I could have.
Yeah.
You could have.
So many
I know.
degrees.
I know. It's really something. So that token coursework is for the customer's benefit, is to convince themselves that they really have earned, for a week, earning a master's degree. How you can convince yourself, I don't know, but some people can convince themselves of anything. But most people, might be duped into believing they're obtaining the legitimate qualification, but everybody, buying it from a degree mills absolutely knows that they're getting a fake. So the fake degree that takes about a week is a way of improving job prospects, and they're usually bought for economic advantage for people who are seeking promotion or seeking to get jobs where the employer wants them to have a degree. A U.S. degree mill that sells fake PhDs to real medical doctors for $10,000. $10,000. A doctor who's already a doctor is looking for additional accreditation that he can put on his wall.
Okay, that's scary.
And an additional board certification in some cases. It costs them $10,000.
That would be the end of a doctor's career if he ever got caught doing that, though.
It absolutely
He'd be done
is.
with the professional associations.
Yeah, and to think of a doctor, thinking that they can get away with this, and some of them do, but when the hammer comes down on them, it really does. So one of these degree mills, called the St. Regis, was estimated to have made $7 million from selling fake qualifications to more than 9,600 customers in 131 countries. That's according to Wired magazine. So
That's
we're not
scary.
talking about, mom and pop spending, $10 to get the minister's degree that says, now you can perform fake weddings. This is big time business, and people who are buying into it are spending, $1,000 and more to get it. So it's getting to be a big business. A lot of countries have government-run websites where you can easily check if a university is officially accredited, but because diploma mills offer fake degrees from real universities, it's essential that employers also check with someone at the university that degree was actually issued.
Well, your degree is going to have a number on it. Right, issued by the university. It's going to have a registration number.
But
and it's very easy to check the registration number at the university against the name of the person it's issued to.
If they check that far. But some of these degrees are so impressive looking that they slip under, and somebody says, oh, well, this person was referred by a friend, this person was referred by another hospital, so they don't go to the bother. But if you check the university, it's not so much the registration number. If the registration number looks real, what the employer has to do is to find out from Yale the coursework and the PhD dissertation or the master's degree thesis. And if those can't be produced, then they're fake.
Yeah, this person is not real.
Sometimes they have to go that far. So it can be, and because some of these fake degrees are foreign, they can be hard to verify. But there have been professors at real universities in West Africa selling degrees on the side. So
wow.
So some of the legitimate U.S. universities are unwittingly partnering with the degree mills that operate abroad. So it's a very sophisticated problem, and it's going to continue to be a concern as international education becomes significant. So this year, CBC, which is for you in the U.S., Canadian Broadcasting Company, we have an investigative journalism program called Marketplace. And in Canada, and I'm going to bring this up because this is pretty well the same thing that's going on in the U.S., but it just happens to be Canadian numbers. The investigation from Marketplace, when they obtained business records of one of the biggest players of the online fake companies called Axact, A-X-A-C-T. We'll get to that in a minute. They found that there are more than 800 Canadians that could have purchased a fake degree from this one site. This isn't all. This is from this one site. So Marketplace decided to pretend to be a buyer, and they sent off for a fake degree, and they specifically asked for a fake degree from one university, a master's and then a PhD from another. And in talking with them online, they actually got this is for biblical counseling. They actually, this is really funny, in getting the degrees and in talking to the people who were from Alameda University, this fake university, they actually bargained from $3,200 US to $2,500 because they were asking for a combined degree. So they got their degree, they got everything. It cost them about, all in all, $2,500, and they had something that was worthy of being hung up on the wall. So with the help of some former employees, court documents, and piecing together other digital clues, Marketplace was also able to identify more than 100 fake online schools and accreditation bodies connected to this AgStack.
So
that's amazing.
If you provide your own paper and your own font, can you still negotiate the price lower?
That's
absolutely scary. So here I am slogging it through an online course. It's going to cost me about $10,000 by the time I'm done.
Yeah.
Well, it's not going to cost me. It's going to cost my company.
Yeah.
And they've got me slogging through this online course to get a certificate.
Yep.
This is just a certificate, right?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at taking 20 courses.
Yeah, don't be such a sucker, Scott.
2 to 3 credits a course. to get 45 credits to achieve the certificate in occupational health and safety, and these guys are getting PhDs for $2,500. I mean, I like what am I doing?
You're a sucker. You're a sucker, dude.
I mean, when you think about it, Scott, you could have had a cheap degree and one hell of a vacation with all the money.
Oh my gosh!
You know, I mean, it's just, why go through all the work when you could have had?
I'm looking at 12 weeks per course. I'm trying to work full time, do the course. I could have had a PhD with a 1 week. Come on, and $2,500.
Right? Who cares if you know what you're doing? Just that degree on the wall that's important. So this AXACT, A-X-A-C-T. This is a Pakistani software company that runs numerous websites selling fake degrees. And as of 2015, they were being investigated by Pakistan's Federal Investigation Agency, and they're been investigated by everybody. And there have been charges laid, and they have had, some. They have had some. Convictions along the way. But what they did, which was especially egregious, was they set up all of their universities that were fake, and then they set up fake accreditation sites so that if anybody wanted to know if these schools were accredited and looked online, there they were.
That's pretty sophisticated.
This was so sophisticated, it's almost unbelievable. And you can go to their site and look up the network of websites. The New York Times identified more than 370 websites associated with Access alleged fake diploma operations, including 145 sites for fictitious universities, 41 for high schools, 18 for fake accreditation boards, and 121 degree portals. And I'm holding in front of me, and we can see here, but if you look online, the amount of universities that they've made up, where people can have degrees from, because it depends on the kind of degree that you want. If you got to get a degree in engineering, you have to get a degree in psychology, and so forth and so on. It's just amazing. And so far, they haven't really slowed down. I
think I need an engineering degree.
Yeah, it's wild. There's personal stories like a Toronto lawyer hired a guy who had one of these degrees who only lasted a month because he was in there to swindle clients and ask them to just give them cash up front. And after a month, they found him out. But it cost this lawyer $100,000 to recover.
Well, not just that. He's
lost
reputation
his
as
professional
well.
reputation went through the ringer.
A fake law degree. So that's one part of it. The other part of it that I found really fascinating is that if you are looking for a fake university online, you can find websites that rate the fake universities so that you could go to them and rank them. Yeah, this one ranks number 1, 2, or 3, but avoid this one because you'll be wasting your money.
This one's under
the
investigation.
Best fake university ever.
Yeah, so
we had the best fake
cost
parties.
me a lot of money.
I mean, I think it's a lot of fun to just go to Google, my friend, and Wikipedia, my other friend, but go to Google and put in fake degrees or fake diplomas or whatever and see what comes up. It's absolutely amazing. This one is buy a degree from an accredited college with transcripts, and then it ranks which ones you should spend your $1,500 on and which ones you can't. So then they would survey. They'd say, "Yes, we've ranked these from surveys from people who have actually." But people actually say, "Yeah, I was happy with this one. No, I wasn't happy with this one," and they review them.
The question is, did they give their names? Did the people that were like, "Oh, I went to this university and I liked my degree," did they give their name?
I was very satisfied with my fake degree.
I would imagine they give their initials.
I'd be like, we're just gonna pass this along to your employer.
I know, but this is so. I mean, the whole thing is just mind-boggling. But this was so much fun. I got to the end of my research, or at least I thought I was at the end of my research, and in Wikipedia, at the bottom where they list all of the sources and they list different places where you can also go to other websites to get information, and there's always little links down at the bottom where you can continue. So I'm looking at my fake diploma things and seeing, maybe there's another relevant link, where I can substantiate a lot more of this. And here's this link, and my jaw drops, and I nearly fell out of my chair because the little link said, list of animals with fraudulent diplomas.
This is the best. I love it. Come on. It's so funny.
So I'm so brave. Funny. I'm adventurous. I'm at home. What can happen? I click on the, what could blow up? So I click on the link, and there is a list of animals with fraudulent diplomas that include non-human animals who have been submitted as applicants to suspected diploma mills. On occasion, they've actually been admitted and granted a degree as reported in reliable sources, because animals are often used as a device to demonstrate the low standards of the awarding institutions. So some of them, one of the famous cats that got a degree is Colby Nolan. Colby is a house cat who was awarded an MBA in 2004 by Trinity Southern University, a Dallas-based diploma mill. There is no such school, sparking a lawsuit by the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office. Colby lives with a deputy attorney general. Yeah, and he got a bachelor's degree in business administration for $2.99, which was a bargain. And on the cat's application, the agents claimed that the cat had previously taken courses at a community college, worked at a fast food restaurant, babysat, and maintained a newspaper room.
Oh my God!
And had a
That's
transcript
quite the kitty cat.
that said he had a GPA of 3.5, which I think is really great.
Please tell me you have acoustic kitty in there too somewhere.
Then the other cats: George, Henrietta, Kitty O'Malley, Oliver Greenlaw, Oreo Collins, and Zoe de Katz, which was German for Zoe the cat. All got wonderful degrees, and in Henrietta's case, his owner, Ben Goldacre, felt particularly honored because dear sweet Henrietta had died a year before she got her degrees.
Oh my gosh.
That was really something. Then there were dogs.
That would actually be something neat to hang on the wall, though, if you're a pet owner. Like, this is the cat's education.
It's more educated than I am.
Put him on the
Cat's
wall.
got better education than I have.
Lulu, Molly, Pete, Sassafras Herbert, which
I like Sassafras.
Awesome
What a good
Sunny
name.
and Wally also all received wonderful degrees from different. It just depends
Spark
on.
101.
But yeah, exactly. So,
They should have like a get together where all these animals just get together and hang out.
Class of 2010.
Yeah.
Hey, Tina, I think Honey Lemon needs a degree.
Yeah. It's my bird.
yeah. So I don't know whether
right on.
people are smarter than dogs or cats, but it just
That's what we're
shows
paying for.
you can be equal in terms of the degree you put on the wall.
She should get a hairdressing degree.
So, guys, should we take one of our pets and actually apply for a degree and get the degree so we can
No, if you get,
we can add it to our webpage. We can actually show the picture of the pet and the degree it has.
You want to spend $1,500?
No.
Go to
No, I don't.
Okay, not unless we can get a bunch more people.
Patreon goal.
Buy the bird a degree.
Isn't that you may know someone
Start a
who has
GoFundMe
a fake
page.
degree.
Well,
And chances are you may know someone.
Oh, probably people at
you
work.
can totally see that happening, right? Somebody, getting a fake degree like that, but going to a third world country where they put themselves in a position of power
totally.
and respect, you totally see that happening very quickly.
The strange.
According to the articles that I read, there are people in government who have been found out. But there are people. There's no profession that is immune.
Safe.
Yeah.
Because people are people, and fraudulent people are.
Everywhere.
Want to get something, to get the additional paycheck without doing the additional work, and so there you are.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that fun?
That is an incredible story.
That was a good one.
That's scary.
All right. Well, let's move on to our Nice little segment we always love called Another Brilliant Moment. Brought to you by religion. Now, Henderson police in Nevada say 53-year-old Wendell Melton shot and killed his son, Giovanni, in the morning of the 2nd of November. Why? Take a guess.
He thought he was gay.
That's right.
Oh, come on.
Sonia Jones is Giovanni's foster mom, and she said that Wendell always had a thing against his son's sexuality. She told 3 News he hated the fact that his son was gay. I'm sure that inside his mind he would rather have a dead son than a gay son.
That's so disgusting.
It is. Apparently, Jones claimed Wendell previously caught Giovanni with his boyfriend and then pulled a gun on him. And she said Giovanni was abused physically and mentally and spiritually for many, many years.
And how old was his son when he murdered him?
He was a teenager. I think he was 16.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so it's...
That's so sad.
It is. You know,
Is that classified as an honor killing?
No, he hasn't. Actually, what they say right now is, he's facing charges of open murder, child abuse, and prohibited person possessing a firearm. So he wasn't even supposed to have a gun. So, oh well. Another one.
Yeah.
And another story. Ladies, did you know that you have no rights to your physical body?
I did know that apparently.
Yeah, that's
actually.
right. In Arkansas again,
that.
megachurch pastor claims a woman has no right over her own body because it all belongs to God.
Yep.
So does that mean if we punch him in the face, we could say Jesus made us do it?
Maybe. I think that's a hypothesis we should test.
Wouldn't that be the same thing for men?
It should be if we're being honestly.
Men aren't owned by God.
Apparently not. It's just women.
You wild beasts.
Where are they getting this from? Like, the logic behind this is totally ludicrous.
It's thinking like that keep women from reporting abuse because it's used against them. You have no right to complain because it's not your body, and God says that man is head of the household, and therefore, and
there's a lot of women who don't even realize like what's happening to them is abuse because they're like, oh well, this person is like higher than me in the status, so obviously they can't do wrong. Or if it's in a marriage, it's like, oh, the husband can do whatever they want. I have no choice.
Yeah, that's why, people like Roy Moore say, well, why didn't these women come forward after 40 years? That's part of the reason why.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So he told his congregation, he says, we have bought into the idea that, what I want to call this morning, theological dualism. This is the idea that you can separate what goes on in your body and what goes on in your soul and spirit. Our soul and spirit are uniquely linked to our body. They cannot be separated. The idea that you hear about the abortion debate, that's a woman's right to choose, and she has the right over her own body, no, that's not true. Your body's a temple to the Holy Spirit, and that's what means, and that means that your arms and your legs and your head and your eyes, it all belongs to God. In short, he argues that the Bible does not support the belief that women have a right to control their own bodies.
He must be fun to hang out with.
Only if you're a man.
Yeah, exactly. Only if you're a man. Oh, okay. And another little short story. Did you guys hear about these 2 male lions photographed while seemingly having sex? Oh, hold on a sec. I gotta switch the music. This is just too good.
Good choice, Kevin. Good choice.
Apparently, where a local quote-unquote moral leader and censor blames the same-sex behavior on gays who visit the area.
Oh my gosh.
So, quote,
the lions saw them and were like, oh, I want to do that too.
That's right. Quote, these animals need counseling because probably they have been influenced by gays who have gone to the national park and behaved badly. Ezekiel Matua.
I think I would pay to see somebody try and counsel a lion.
Can you get a fake degree in lion counseling?
Probably.
We could put that one up. I'll pay the $1,500 bucks.
Gay lion counselor. I love that.
Homosexual lion counseling.
Quote,
that and the steak will get you pretty far.
Quote, I don't know if they must have copied from somewhere or it is demonic, Mutua added, because these animals do not watch movies. Not even The Lion King. So the pictures are the work of UK wildlife photographer Paul Goldstein, who snapped the frisky felines in the Masai Mara Game Reserve. One beast laid down and was mounted by the other. Some research needs to be done, Motoa told Nairobi News. Also, I wish I can get the bio to confirm these two lions are actually male, because it's not normal.
Because it's not apparent that they're both males.
The picture is quite clear, actually. These animals need counseling because probably they've been influenced by gays who have been gone in a national park and behaved badly. He said,
Wow.
So if he didn't like it, why did he stay there long enough to watch and picture it?
No, he didn't take the picture. It was a photographer from the UK who took the picture.
If two lions get it on, who cares? Like,
It's not the first time, it won't be the last time, and it won't be the only species.
I've seen male dogs go after each other. I mean, big deal.
So, regardless, he called the beast's behavior bizarre, and he plans to seclude the lions. I mean, where on earth you ever heard something like this happening? The demonic spirits inflicting the humans seem to have now caught up with the animals.
Wow.
Says, this is why I say isolate the crazy gay animals, study the behaviors, because it's not normal.
I know these two are bound to become the ghost and what is it? The
Ghost in the darkness?
The ghost in the darkness. See, two male lions? There it is, man. They're going to be man killers.
That's a reference. Thank you so much for that, guys. All right, so let's go on a commercial, and when we come back, we'll be with Andrew Torrez, and we'll be talking about the Johnson Amendment. So stay with us.
Do you know where Saskatchewan is? Probably not. It's in Canada. If you do, you might know a city named Regina. In Regina, there's a studio. And in that studio, there are, at least once a month, a bunch of skeptical atheist geeks and goofballs who get together to do a podcast. We are the Brainstorm Crew, and we're trying to help spread a bit of reason and critical thinking while still having fun. Never taking things too seriously, but still not accepting everything we're told. We go through different topics, exploring them in depth and often disagreeing. We try to stick to provable facts, and we never trust in myth. That's why we say we're woo-free since 2013. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, or Spreaker under Brainstorm, or check out our website, brainstormblog.net. I can't promise you'll always agree with us, but I can promise you'll have fun listening to us.
Hi, I'm the Supreme Irreverend Dr. Randy Tyson from the Legion of Reason Diversion. Join me and my co-hosts, Christine Shelska, Twyla, and Nate Phelps, as we explore issues at the intersection of atheism, humanism, and skepticism. Topics range from alternative medicine to the interference of religion in public policy. We often have special guests to help us understand the topic du jour. Previous guests include biologist Jerry Coyne, ex-Muslim author Ali Rizvi, philosopher Peter Boghossian, and the late physicist Victor Stanger. You can watch us on the Legion of Reason YouTube channel or subscribe to the audio version through your favorite podcatchers such as iTunes or Stitcher. And don't forget to like the Legion of Reason Facebook page.
Nine million children die every year before they reach the age of 5. Any God who would allow children by the millions to suffer and die in this way either can do nothing to help them or doesn't care to. He is therefore either impotent or evil. But this to me is the true horror of religion. It allows perfectly decent and sane people to believe by the billions what only lunatics could believe on their own. If you wake up tomorrow morning thinking that saying a few Latin words over your pancakes is going to turn them into the body of Elvis Presley, you have lost your mind. But if you think more or less the same thing about a cracker and the body of Jesus, you're just a Catholic.
All right, so our next guest is lawyer Andrew Torrez of the Opening Argument podcast, and also the bravest man in the world, because I know for a fact that he keeps Eli Bosnik at bay. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us at Left of the Valley.
Kevin, everyone, thanks a lot for having me on the show. This is I'm really looking forward to it.
We're looking forward to it as well.
Yes, so your psychology bill for having to take care of Eli Bosnik, how much does that rack into right now? I mean, this is why you're a lawyer, right? You got to make the big bucks just for that, right?
Yep.
I would get into it, but I'm sorry that's protected by attorney-client privilege. So
we also don't have enough time.
I cannot regale you with Eli Bosnik stories, but I can confirm the existence of some of those stories.
Oh no.
Andrew, you're obviously making some great headways down in the States. You might not be as well known north of the 49 parallel. Would you be so kind to give us a brief introduction about yourself and your show?
Sure. Well, I am. I'm a practicing U.S. lawyer. I've got my own firm, and for a little over a year, going up on a year and a half now, I have been the co-host of the Opening Arguments podcast, and our goal with that is to take issues that are in the news, stories that are being covered that have a legal component, and try and explain them and to kind of figure out what the news media gets wrong, which is just about everything. So that's my primary podcasting life is through Opening Arguments.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And today we're going to be talking about the Johnson Amendment. Up here in the Great White North, we look upon that with kind of concern. But for those of our listeners that are not exactly sure what it is, and some of our American listeners that might not know, can you give us a brief course as to what the Johnson Amendment is?
Sure. And this is a really good illustration of kind of what we do on the show. The Johnson Amendment and the concern about what President Trump has done and is threatening to do is something that I think people both simultaneously are overly worried about and are not concerned enough about. So kind of in classic lawyer fashion, let me go through both of those. So what is the Johnson Amendment? It is a section of the U.S. Code. It is 26 U.S.C. 501c3, and you may have heard reference to 501c3 exempt organizations. It's a codicil that was added in the 1950s that basically says if you are an organization that is exempt from paying taxes under 501c3 of Title 26 of the U.S. Code, then you are also prohibited from, and here's the exact language, I apologize for the legalese, but, it's our tax code. All Section 501c3 organizations are absolutely prohibited from directly or indirectly participating in or intervening in any political campaign on behalf of or in opposition to any candidate for elective public office. Contributions to political campaign funds or public statements of position, verbal or written, made on behalf of the organization in favor of or in opposition to any candidate for public office clearly violate the prohibition against political campaign activity. Violating this prohibition may result in denial or revocation of tax-exempt status and the imposition of certain excise taxes. So that's the Johnson Amendment, and what most people sort of get the idea that it's a quid pro quo, right? If you're an organization that's exempt from paying taxes, you shouldn't be out there trying to influence policy. Mm-hmm. But that's really kind of an oversimplification, right? Because there are lots of tax-exempt organizations that fall under other sections of the IRS code that get to intervene on and in behalf of any political campaign as much as they want. So, for example, the very next section down, 26 U.S.C. 501c4, covers organizations that engage in political lobbying. But the key difference between a C3 and a C4 is that when you as an individual make a donation, as a U.S. citizen, make a donation to a 501c3 organization, not only is it tax exempt for the organization doesn't have to pay taxes on it as income, but you get to deduct it from your taxes. And if it's a church, you get to deduct up to 50% of your taxes. And 501c4 organizations don't have that preferential double treatment, right? 501c4s, their income is tax exempt, but your donations to them are not. So it really is, it's a super specialized area where you get twice the benefit.
And this amendment essentially is really what keeps the church, or is designed to really keep churches out of putting a lot of money into politics, essentially.
Yeah, and it's designed to do that. And here's the area where we have to be honest about the status of the enforcement of this provision when it comes to churches, which is to say that the Treasury official who is in charge of enforcing the specific provision of the Johnson Amendment, that position has been unfilled for the better part of 2 decades. I know of no prosecutions under 501c3 for tax evasion for churches that have engaged in lobbying. So in other words, and I know that we have. There's a right-wing organization called the Alliance Defending Freedom that for the better part of a decade has organized what they call Pulpit Freedom Sundays, where they encourage churches, ministers, pastors, preachers to directly endorse candidates from the pulpit, videotape it, and mail it to the IRS. Oh, wow. Wow. So, in an act of I don't know what they're trying to prove other than the law isn't enforced, right? So that's bad. But there's still important reasons to want to have the Johnson Amendment on the books. But you need to know. I mean, this is an example of sort of clear religious preference in the United States. If I have an educational 501c3 organization, so for example, some of the many atheist and humanist chapters, some of which I've spoken to, consult from, some of whom are my clients. If you're an educational institution with 501c3 status, you will be audited if you engage in political lobbying and speech. It is the number one cause of those organizations losing their 501c3 status is direct participation in on behalf of a political campaign or on behalf of a political issue. And that's just a clear double standard, right? If you're secular, yep, the law is enforced with respect to you. If you're a church, it isn't.
Now, that position that has been vacant for 2 decades, is this something that the president is supposed to appoint this person, a person to this position? I mean, have presidents been sleeping at the wheel for 2 decades now in the States?
It's been a kind of uneasy. I mean, so the answer to the question is yes. And the reasons, if you think back to previous U.S. presidents, we have had both Republicans and Democrats, but we don't really have an organized secular party in the United States, right? I mean, our right-wing Republicans are a wholly bought and paid for arm of the Christian right. But that doesn't mean that their opposition party, the Democrats, isn't also sort of chasing after religious voters. And so there's been this kind of uneasy standoff where even the last 2 Democratic presidents, Barack Obama and Bill Clinton, haven't been particularly interested in being perceived as picking a fight with churches. And so, it goes from bad to worse, but it never really swings back to good if you're a secularist.
It's just amazing because I got to make a distinction between Canada and the U.S. I mean, the U.S. does have a secular constitution, and yet it operates almost as a theocracy. And when you look at Canada, we actually do have a preamble to God in our constitution, yet Canada is much more secular, to the point that this past week, the Governor General came out and basically said we need to focus more towards science and less towards astrology, climate denial, and religion. So it's just absolutely amazing.
That'd be nice. Can we swap governments just for a couple of years?
Well, we've been informed by our government that since Trump has been in there, we're free to offer asylum to every American that wants to come for the next 4 years. You just got to remember that we have stronger beer, and you got to prefer hockey over football for a while.
Yeah.
And you can't bring your guns
I'm good with the beer. the problem is that I have a really, really limited set of skills that I'm not sure how well that would play.
Well, you don't have
Canada.
to play hockey. You just have to enjoy watching people beat the crap out of each other.
That's right.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I went to a fight
I
and
can
a
handle the
hockey game
hockey.
broke out.
I just think it would probably interfere with my day job to no longer be based in the States. But,
Probably a little bit, yeah.
You'll have to move your practice up here.
well,
Canadian law is much simpler.
Enough beer, and it won't bother me anymore.
Yeah, fair enough. So right now, as we speak, and now that you guys are under this current political climate with an interesting president.
Understatement.
Nancy's not here, and thank God she's not here, because right now she'd be yelling at the mic, I think.
That's the proper response.
Yes, the proper response.
I want to endorse Nancy there.
I just want his hair.
Oh my. Okay, I'm just going to jump in here for a second. Somebody photoshopped normal hair on a picture of Trump, and it is so weird.
It's the weirdest thing.
It does
I've
not
been
look
mad
like
at
him.
it.
Just like randomly
I can't
normal
even
hair.
imagine that.
I don't think anybody can imagine. So now that is Trump actually moving to completely dismantle the Johnson Amendment?
Yeah. So here's what he's done and what he's called to do. Okay. And the important things to remember here are Donald Trump's approval rating has been hovering right around 38%. And that is almost entirely due to a 90+% approval rating, and high 80s, low 90s approval rating from the evangelical Christian sub percentage of the population. Right? That's the only discrete group in this country that approves of Donald Trump, and they approve of him in those spectacular sort of ways. And so Donald Trump, who again prior to being elected president, I don't think, was not a member of any church. Right? I mean, Penn Jillette, who was on Donald Trump's TV show, has basically said on his show that he's fairly certain that Donald Trump is an atheist. This is not somebody who you think of as having any kind of religious character, but because that's his only power base now, he is undertaking every step that he really can to try and continue to whip up and encourage that section of his base. So what has he done specifically with respect to the Johnson Amendment and churches? In July, President Trump issued an executive order, and an executive order it's this kind of weird thing. We have, because our country is large, and because there are because laws can just kind of have this sprawling character to them. You think of Congress as passing a law, which is what American kids learn in their civics classes. It's true, but there's also this weird dynamic where Congress will delegate to executive agencies, that is, agencies that report to the president, to make regulations for how to interpret laws. Right. And so and what that means is that, so, for example, like Congress can pass something like the Clean Air Act. Well, we know that and we'll say, look, we want to reduce carcinogens in the air and that sort of thing. But we know that how that's going to go into practice in, each and every workplace across a really large country, it would not be practical to have Congress have to amend it, sort of every couple of weeks or every couple of months or every couple of years as things change. So Congress will delegate some authority to an executive agency to then promulgate regulations that are consistent with the overall purpose. So the executive agency doesn't get to make the law, but they do get to carry it out, and they do get to issue these kinds of regulations. All of that is background. The president sits atop all of these executive agencies, and so he can issue basically what are letters, right? There are executive orders that tell those agencies how they should go about in applying their particular rules that enforce that aspect of the law. Does that make sense? I feel like that's a lot of like.
So in other words, he can say.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So in other words, he can actually say, "This is the law, but I order you to ignore it."
Or this is how it should be interpreted.
Go ahead, Right.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
exactly right. And the important thing is that executive, there are two things about executive orders. Number one, they're confined in scope to the authority delegated to the executive agency by Congress, right? You can't go beyond, because Congress still makes the laws, so you can't go beyond the original grant of authority in the first place. And number two, because they are guidance issued by the president, then you don't have to go through Congress to change them, right? So one of the things that Barack Obama did in 2008 was immediately upon assuming office undo a whole bunch of George W. Bush executive orders, and one of the things that Donald Trump has done since taking office is undo a whole bunch of Barack Obama executive orders, and assuming that everything goes according to plan, in a couple of years, we will kick Donald Trump out of office, and the next president will undo all of Donald Trump's executive orders.
I love your optimism.
You are an optimist.
I'm sorry.
I love your optimism.
Well, it's you have to have a little bit of optimism, or else you'll just wallow in this pit of despair, which we do twice a week on the show. So. I'm trying to bring the cheeriness here. So that's what Trump. So that's the first thing that Trump has done, is he's issued an executive order directing the Treasury Department, which is an executive agency, so reports to the president, not to enforce the provisions of the Johnson Amendment that I just read to you. Mm-hmm. In fact, that executive order says the Secretary of the Treasury shall ensure, to the extent permitted by law, that the Department of the Treasury, that is the agency that sits over the IRS, which collects taxes, does not take any adverse action against any individual house of worship or other religious organization on the basis that such individual organization speaks or has spoken about moral or political issues from a religious perspective. And then this is the kind of the key part to why I gave you all that background. Mm-hmm. Where speech of similar character has, consistent with law, not ordinarily been treated as participation or intervention in a political campaign on behalf of or in opposition to a candidate for public office by the Department of the Treasury. So parsing through that kind of legalese, what they've done is taken advantage of the fact that the Johnson Amendment wasn't being enforced to now codify that as a guidance to say, oh, well, if it hasn't been enforced in the past 10, 15, 20 years, now you are prohibited from enforcing it because it hasn't been considered that way.
Whoa.
Damn. So that's the little game that they're playing. Where I'm really concerned about this is less so. Well, I'm concerned about it in a couple of ways. First is there are legislative efforts to repeal the Johnson Amendment underway. And consistent with the distinction that I just made, that would be a really, really bad thing, because the next president can come in and undo this executive order and put some teeth back into the Johnson Amendment. That's an uphill battle, but that's one we can fight. Once the provision is removed from the tax code, then that would require a tremendous amount of secular political capital that I just don't see happening. And once it's out of the tax code, it's going to be gone, in my view, for generations, if not permanently. So I'm keeping my eye on that. And there have been bills already introduced, and so far they haven't gone anywhere. But we'll see.
Yeah.
And the second thing that's really, really troublesome is I've mentioned that churches have gotten a free pass from the Johnson Amendment, and that's true. But the one area where the Johnson Amendment has been enforced that is of value to us as secularists is when it comes to parachurch organizations. That is, organizations that are affiliated with churches, but they're not. They're not a house of worship. There's not a cross on top of their building. And this is an increasingly active part of the foot soldiers of the Christian right, are these political lobbying arms that are registered as 501c4 groups. So, what you'll see, and I should, to be fair, these groups exist across the political spectrum. Right. So you will have, for example, Planned Parenthood is a 501c3 tax-exempt organization that provides women's health services in the United States. They also have a lobbying arm that fights for reproductive rights and freedoms. That's a 501c4 group, and it's called Planned Parenthood Action. And so when I donate money to Planned Parenthood, I get that 501c3 double bonus, right? I get to deduct it from my taxes, and Planned Parenthood is tax exempt. If I want to donate to their lobbying arm, to Planned Parenthood Action, I donate to the 501c4. I don't get to deduct that from my taxes.
Oh, okay.
And that's where these explicitly political religious lobbying organizations they're occupying that space. And I'm concerned about tearing down that wall, and that those parachurch organizations that are currently 501c4s moving to reclassify as 501c3s and continuing their lobbying efforts. That would represent a radical shift in power. It would mean exclusively for right-wing political causes, you would be able to deduct that money donated to those organizations from your taxes with no countervailing equivalency on the left. And that, it would essentially mean that U.S. tax dollars are being spent to subsidize right-wing political causes. And I can't imagine.
Every church will become a super PAC, essentially.
I'm sorry?
Every church will become a super PAC, essentially.
Yeah, well, and it would obliterate that line, right? Where, as you point out, I haven't talked about this yet, but churches get preferential treatment for being they're presumptively treated as 501c3s, right? So if I have an atheist or secular humanist group, I have to apply to get them 501c3 status. It's a lengthy application. It is heavily scrutinized. There's all sorts of monitoring. If you're a church, it's kind of rubber stamped. So yeah, that's exactly right. You would have churches being a gateway to this massive political funneling into political campaigns, and that's pretty scary.
Hey, Andrew, you sure you don't want to come up to Canada? I mean, right now we have the city of Montreal that's actually starting to tax the churches. You sure you don't want to come up here? I mean, seems way more inviting of a country for atheists.
Either that or we have to form our own church.
I actually took a trip to Montreal and Quebec City earlier this year. My son is he just turned 15 and is fascinated with French. He's been studying it for a couple of years, and so we couldn't afford to go to Paris, but I was like, well, we can go. We'll head on up to
the next best
to Montreal, and you can interact with native French speakers.
No,
they were not thrilled with his accent. So
yeah, Quebec City is where he wants to be for that. Yeah, absolutely. just the history and everything is just fantastic. Oh, if I was there, I'd take him on a tour. That's where I'm from originally. So
oh yeah, just beautiful. I mean, it was. Boy, like we had a fantastic time. We ate at this like fabulous restaurant that is, like all restaurants talk about like local cuisine. And what they did was they would only use ingredients that were within 100 miles or so of where the restaurant was, basically like on the St. Lawrence Seaway and so that meant no citrus, right? Because lemons don't grow up there. It was really, really cool what they did. It was just an unbelievable experience.
Yeah, it's actually that's actually part of a challenge that started here in British Columbia. It's kind of spread all over the country, and it's a bit of a trend. Some people are liking this. The 100-mile diet, they call it.
Oh, is that? I hadn't known. We have in the U.S. we have a focus in restaurants on quote local ingredients, but it's really kind of lax on how, I couldn't imagine one. I mean, there are no, I live in Maryland and there are no citrus trees in Maryland either, but yeah. none of our local restaurants would dream of operating without, lemon, lime, orange, that sort of thing. So,
that's true.
This is super cool. Anyway, so yes, I think what I'm saying is I'm going to take you up on your invitation.
Oh, absolutely. Come by whenever you want. Now, let's talk a bit about your podcast, Opening Arguments. Okay. So what was the genesis of that? I mean, it's a brilliant idea, by the way, I must admit. A legal point of view, it's one of those things that people don't think about, right? There's plenty of loud mouth like me talking about stuff, but to
They have one of those too. His name's Thomas.
Well, yeah, but wait.
See, I gotta jump in and defend my co-host on it.
It's okay.
Because,
don't mock Thomas. He's got
I'm
no
a
feet.
fan of both of you. I'm actually a Patreon of Thomas and you.
Don't mock Thomas. He's got no feet. Okay?
I know he can't walk.
You can't mock him. Say, well, inside joke for those who understand that.
So, well, that is actually the genesis for the show. I was a guest on Thomas's the previous iteration of Serious Inquiries Only, which was called Atheistically Speaking, and I had sent him an email because he had because I was literally just a fan of his show, and he'd had a guest on, and it was like this great hour-long discussion, and in the last like 10 minutes, the guest, who wasn't a lawyer, was like pontificating about some legal thing, and it just kind of like went off the rails. And so I emailed Thomas and I'm like, hey, I love the show, but I love this episode, but this part about the law kind of made me cringe. And instead of telling me to go to hell, which is what any sensible podcaster should have done, he was like, oh no, really, thanks for pointing out where I got the law wrong. And then like 2 weeks later was when Antonin Scalia died, and so he emailed me and said, hey, would you like to come on the show and talk dirt about Antonin Scalia? And I said, boy, would I. And so that was kind of where the whole idea got started. And I just have to say, like, I wasn't kidding when I say I think Thomas makes the show, like, in addition to the fact that he's a fantastic interviewer. I mean, he's the best interviewer. I've done a lot of interviews, and he's the best interviewer I know. And present company accepted, of course.
Well, thank you. I'll send his check right away.
but that's bribery. You can't do that.
Right.
You have to send him maple syrup and Crown Royal.
But having that non-lawyer perspective on the show, like, really, I think makes it work, right? Because he knows when to stop and say, Andrew, no one knows what the hell's standing is. You gotta stop, and you can't stop. and,
Speak English.
And so, we started kind of wanting to do a lot of the like long form journalism of what is the real history behind the Second Amendment in the United States. That's the well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That all of those kinds of foundational issues. We were a little bit derailed by the Trump presidency.
Just a little.
This is not a normal occurrence to have, at 11 o'clock at night, courts issuing injunctions blocking executive orders from going into effect. That's not the way this country is supposed to work. And so, regardless of whether you like it or you don't, and our politics are pretty clear. And we try
Yodel
and
Mountain
make no
is pretty
bones about
fun.
that.
Trying to climb up Yodel Mountain is pretty fun.
I thought I have to say, if I'm going to pat myself on the back about anything, the on the spot analogy of what it was going to take to impeach Donald Trump to the old Price is Right game is that I think obviously I don't I'm an atheist, and I have my organs will be donated to science, and my body is set to be donated to the university down the street. But if I were to have a tombstone, I think Yodel Mountain would be the epitaph. Make it a tombstone.
Fantastic. So one last question about your show there, Opening Arguments, which I'm a fan, I listen to, and I recommend everybody do. Follow that podcast. It's absolutely worth it, even if you don't live in the U.S. It's still good knowledge. What do you guys plan to... was that the purpose of the show? Just simply be more informative for the general population?
Yeah, it really is. And so I really appreciate the endorsement. We try. We have a surprisingly larger number of international listeners than I thought. And what I try and do is talk about some general legal concepts, even where I get bogged down in the details of 26 USC 501c. I can't help it. Like you can't take that level of law geekery out of me. But we live in this age in which the all aspects of media are really under assault from from every direction, and it is. So I look at, the New York Times, for example, is a terrific newspaper. It's, perhaps the best newspaper we have in this country. Almost everything they report about the law is wrong often in really critical ways.
Yeah.
As reporters aren't lawyers, right? And so they're doing their best, but there was really this kind of gap out there, and one of the things that we try and do. Obviously, we call out Trump, but we try and call out the quote fake news on the left as well. And so, I got. You may recall that sort of right the day before it was in the end of November. It was the day before the American holiday of Thanksgiving, and I had my arm deep inside a turkey, and all of a sudden my phone was buzzing in my pocket nonstop. And I had to go inside and scrub. If you've ever had your arm inside a turkey, right? That's not a one wipe on a napkin, right? That is, you've got to scrub down to get the grease off. And what had happened was I had gotten 500 messages in the span of 5 minutes because Jill Stein had announced that she was filing recounts that were going to overturn the results of the election.
Oh my gosh!
And as you probably know from fast forwarding to now, where that didn't happen, that was abject nonsense. It was completely ridiculous in every possible way. And I called Tom. I'm like, okay, we got to do an emergency record and get this out there because
give the people their facts.
Yeah, well, good, well-meaning people on the left. Jill Stein, as I point this out, Jill Stein, in the 2 years in which she ran for the presidency, and by the way, she was a fringe Green Party candidate. Yes. She finished in 4th place in our two-way election. And as she ran for president for 2 years and raised $3.5 million, her recount ran for 2 weeks as a fundraiser, and she raised $7 million.
Oh my gosh.
And lots of good people were sending somebody who I am not afraid to say on my show, by the way, this is solely the opinion of me and not Left at the Valley, but is a con artist, is a scam artist. She is a crook, in my view.
Really?
And she deceptively told people that she was raising money for recounts when you went to her website, the disclaimer said basically that they would promise to maybe use the money to possibly file for one recount if nobody was hurt in the process. And if not, then it would go towards the Green Party's historic efforts at election reform, which, by the way, are directed at increasing ballot access to third-party candidates, have nothing to do with recounts of the presidential election, anything like that. It is, if not prosecutable as criminal behavior, it is certainly scummy behavior of the highest order. And even though, right, like I have friends who are Jill Stein supporters, right? Like I'm much closer on the left to somebody like a Jill Stein than I am to, Donald Trump. But people needed to know that they were throwing money at a con artist out of that emotional reaction of, oh gosh, Donald Trump
There's
can't
some
be president.
chance.
I will do anything, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
I got kicked off of a Lawyers on the Left group. I was added for an hour
my
because
gosh.
I was on Facebook. It had like 20 or 30,000 members, and I had posted an article that said, "Hey, look, you may be seeing these recounts. It's a scam. There's no way they have standing because in order to file, particularly in Wisconsin, the law required that the candidate be aggrieved, right? Which is to say, have an injury that the courts could recompense. And Jill Stein didn't even claim to have an injury in Wisconsin, right? She was at 1% beforehand. She was going to be at 1% afterwards. There was no right. It was just plainly obvious that she wasn't going to be able to get any recounts. And without getting the recount in Wisconsin, you couldn't overturn the election, and so all this was pointless. And that's basically what I said. And then lawyers contacted me and said, I've been trying to share this in this Facebook group called Lawyers on the Left, and nobody believes me, so I want you to come on and share it. And I did, and I got on, and I shared it, and I just posted the law and said, look, we're all lawyers here. You know what standing is. She doesn't have it. Why would anybody send her money? And the one of the admins of the group posted a reply that said, well, judges can be unpredictable, and I just view this like playing the lottery.
Wow.
And what got me kicked was I wrote back and I said, that's the difference. See, I wouldn't advise you to play the lottery either.
Oh, there we go.
Maybe that was a bit harsh, but it was. What can you say when a lawyer says, "I know that there's no basis for this, but I'm going to throw money at it anyway"? What I could do is get on the show and try and shout it from the rooftop. So
grab a napkin, homie. You've just been served. Wow. Andrew, thank you so much for coming on the show and explaining all this to us. But the mic is all yours, my friend. Be shameless. Go ahead and plug yourself. Say it all. Oh, where can they find you and all that? Where can they listen to you?
I just want to say thanks again for having me. I really appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun.
It's our pleasure.
Well, thanks. So the show is Opening Arguments. You can Google it. We're the number 1 hit for opening arguments because the way U.S. law works, in your opening statements, you're not allowed to make an argument. So we deliberately picked this name so that wouldn't get confused, right? It's openargs.com, OPENARGS.com. And that's how you can find us on Twitter and Facebook and everywhere else, too. It's if you like this kind of bit, then you probably would like the show. So
definitely.
Perfect. Andrew, before I let you go, I got to have you say, hi, I'm Andrew Torrez of Opening Argument, and I took a left at the Valley.
All right. Hi, I'm Andrew Torrez of Opening Arguments Podcast, and I took a left at the Valley.
And that was Andrew Torrez. What a lawyer, this guy. What a lawyer, huh? He just goes and goes on, and I'm glad. I kind of wish we had our lawyer friend here just so they could just banter back and forth, these two.
Oh, that would... I think they would leave us in the dust.
Yeah.
They would be like, wait, what? What?
It's a very scary thought, though, that the U.S. is exactly where they are. I've been saying this for a couple of years now. They're like 1 or 2 steps away from becoming a theocracy. Yeah, they are. They totally are.
Well, the scary part is they've got so many smart people, so many great minds in the U.S., so many great idealists there who are just beautiful people. And it's the idiots who keep rising to power.
I know.
Yep.
But thank goodness for the ACLU and lawyers like Torrez. I mean, that really gives you hope that they'll be able to. That they're the defense. Against just dissolving into autocracy.
Here's a little intellectual exercise. You guys remember several months ago. The president of France, Emmanuel Macron, I believe, made an appeal to intellectuals to come to France.
I did hear about that.
Yeah, he made
it was for climate change. It was for the climate.
After the climate change, after Trump decided not. Can you imagine if there was some kind of
movement,
brain exodus from the U.S.
that
to
would
Europe?
Be terrifying.
I can see.
Would the states really turn?
Not just on climate change. I can see a brain exodus from the U.S. just on people who disagree with the way the country's going, saying, you know what, my brain could be better used elsewhere.
Though I think a lot of people realize that they are like the stopgap. Like they can be the change.
Yeah. That's so good.
Yeah,
you're hopeful.
I know. Well, especially with
such a young, naive
especially
mind.
with how the political system in the States, people are actually realizing that as an individual, they do have an impact, and that there are issues with politics right now in how it's just even set up, in like voting and with the gerrymandering, and they're realizing, okay, we have to change this. We can't wait for the next generation. It's going to shit now. We have to fix it now.
Yeah, exactly.
Always that, or they're going to end up with that theocracy.
Exactly.
We keep talking
Exactly.
About.
All right. Time for my rant.
Woohoo! Fight!
Kevin.
So November 11th just happened. I hope you took time to thank a soldier. I wish we lived in a world that would make their job obsolete, but being that our society is in its infancy and most of us still believe in a divine magic man takes sides in a dispute, it seems the soldier and the sacrifice he or she makes is still necessary. November 11th is one of those sacred cows for Canadian. we like to show gratitude to our fallen soldiers and thank them, knowing that their sacrifice allows us to move on, allows me to say these words. And although I like to participate in the ceremony honoring them, I find myself having a harder time to do it. What really disturbed me the most is the blatant Christian overtones in the ceremony. Now, I know that many soldiers were Christian, but as I look upon the stage, the soldiers on that stage, some Caucasians, some black, some Indian, some Asians, this Christian appeal to their carpenter God leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Doesn't this fly straight into the face of our multicultural values as Canadians? Now, I know I'm not supposed to rock the boat with the sacred cow, but isn't it time that the ceremony of November 11th reflect the secular multicultural nature of Canada? Are we not ignoring the non-Christian soldiers when we invoke the Christian God? Was his or her sacrifice any less significant? It's hard to maintain a sense of harmony amongst Canadians when we insist upon thanking a God over another. In that sense, religion does what it's always done best: it divides us. Whether it's a politician pulling up a nativity scene or a Christmas or a priest giving out a prayer, November 11th, we're sending a loud message to those Canadians who don't believe in a Jewish carpenter God. You don't matter. I think it's high time to drop religious messages in public ceremonies, either include them all or drop them all. It's all about being fair to all Canadians, not just Christians. It's the Canadian way. It's the reason these soldiers sacrifice for.
Well said.
All right, and that takes us to the end of our show. Good show, guys, as usual.
It was fun.
It was all fun.
It's always fun.
Oh, we didn't talk about
always have
anything
fun
depressing
here.
at all.
Do we ever?
No, never.
Thank you so much for joining us on the show today, guys. You can follow us on leftandvalley.com.
Yeah, there you are.
You can follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, at LATV Podcast. You can send us an email at leftandvalley@outlook.com. Coming up, where's my calendar? Next week, we'll be talking to Luke Fevrin. We'll be talking about Christianity inserting itself into school, especially in Alberta and BC.
Ooh.
And after that, we have Nate Phelps,
Yeah.
the son of Fred Phelps,
Oh, my
coming
goodness.
to talk to us about his story. So that'll be a cool, and of course for December, don't forget, we also have our Christmas special. Typically like our Halloween special, we're talking about Christmas. And of course we'll have the top 10 of the year. Excellent.
Wow,
Yep.
I can't believe we're there. I mean, wasn't it
Year's
just
almost over
July?
already.
Wasn't it just? I went. It was a
Yeah.
lovely day in July. Yesterday, and I woke up.
Jeez, the last time I looked, it was March.
It is too hot.
Thank you so much, guys. Until next time.
Read Harry Potter.
Harry Potter.
I'm an atheist. I'm an atheist. I'm an atheist. It amazes me how perfectly intelligent people can reach the conclusion that all non-believers are evil. What a fucked up statement. Do you realize what you're saying? But according to your book, this is how your God made me. Skeptical of anything that contradicts history, denies evolution, hates science, promotes mystery. I'd rather see the truth than to bask in my own ignorance. Rather be alone than surrounded by damn idiots. As long as there's a breath in my body, you can bet your last dollar I'll be working hard fighting this problem. Religion is a disease, it comes from culture. Only true on a regional scale. Science is universal. For you to say that Horus isn't real, but Jesus is, or Zeus, Thor, Mithra, Vishnu, you don't believe in them. I think the reason is apparent. You do what you're told and believe in the God assigned by your parents. I'm proud to be an atheist, a skeptic, a non-believer, an infidel, a heathen. I call it how I see it. I say it's ignorance and you just call it faith in unsubstantiated claims. That's something to be ashamed. I'm an atheist. I'm an atheist. I'm an atheist. I'm an atheist. Now let me take a sec. Don't mean to sound so hateful, but I swear to God, pun intended, I find it disgraceful that thousands of children are raped by priests, and since they're holy men of God, they get away scot-free. And the Pope does his very best to keep it on the hush. Don't wanna affect business, he loves money too much. We know that they love the kids, but how the fuck can we protect them while they planning to molest them? We teaching them to respect them.
Fuck that.
The system is broke down, working backwards, and the only action or tactic I plan to practice now is to attack them. The parties of God's hands are bloodstained, millions of murders by believers, and they're all in God's name. And let me take a sec, don't mean it sounds so hateful, but I swear to God, pun intended, I find it disgraceful that many atheists are told to be quiet. You're not alone, speak your mind, time to let it be known. I'm proud to be an atheist, a skeptic, a non-believer, an infidel, a heathen, I call it how I see it. I say it's ignorance and you just call it faith, and unsubstantiated claims, that's something to be ashamed. I'm an atheist. Atheist, atheist,